wise words as chapter 3 of Ecclesiastes. Others know them as the basis of a lyric for a Pete Seeger song. What's important is that we're a diverse state here in Colorado. And while some people recognize the power of these words as the Bible, others recognize it as a Pete Seeger song, others recognize it as both, and others recognize it as neither, it's important for you to know that I'm speaking to all of Colorado when I say that now is the time to stay at home. The numbers are telling us, and the data is telling us, that while we've made progress on increasing social distancing, that progress is not enough. And that's why I'm acting today to issue a stay-at-home order that begins Thursday, March 26th at 6 in the morning and lasts until Saturday, April 11th, 2020. This full order will be released by midnight tonight to take effect tomorrow morning. This means that we are taking every step we can to limit the spread of the virus. Why now? Look, we requested that Coloradans follow this step and we cut down workplace density. And while isolation, social isolation has increased and distancing has increased, it's not yet reached the number that we need to save lives and contain the spread of the virus, which is why we are resorting to this measure, this extreme measure, at this time to make sure that people know that they need to stay in their homes whenever possible. Many county health departments are acting in different ways, proactively, to contain the crisis. As county health departments act, it creates a regional and a statewide issue where more and more people are going to fewer and fewer stores and retailers and work in fewer and fewer locations, creating a greater public health crisis. We saw a similar issue in our mountain communities where after Alterra and Vail Resorts announced their decision to close, we couldn't have a situation where more and more people were going to fewer and fewer smaller resorts to recreate without creating a public health crisis. Finally, we need time. We need time to build the hospital capacity, acquire the ventilators that we need to save lives. We also are acting to minimize the disruption to jobs and the economy. By acting boldly now, we can limit the duration of this economic crisis. Rather than have to suffer through additional restrictions on workplace and free commerce for a long period of time, we can effectively contain this virus by engaging in these measures now and returning to normal sooner rather than later. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, we're issuing this stay-at-home order to save lives. To save lives. Could be your aunt or your uncle, could be your parent, could be your grandparent, could be your own life that is saved by these strong actions that we are taking now. And by the way, when we're talking about saving lives, we're not talking about one or two lives. We're talking about thousands of Coloradans' lives, perhaps tens of thousands of Coloradan lives that will be saved by these actions that we are taking today. Now, what does this mean? The stay-at-home order means that individuals should only interact with your own household and only leave your household when you absolutely need to. That means that, of course, the facilities that we need to access are staying open. That means, of course, grocery stores. Just as in Denver, it also means liquor stores. You don't need to rush those. They're staying open throughout this. Restaurants are continuing to deliver and do takeout. It just means that those non-essential stores, many of which have been closed for days, will be closed across our state, as will the workplaces that are not critical for this effort. In order for this effort to be effective, this is going to need to be clear and concise for all Coloradans to obey. Whether you read and contemplate Ecclesiastes, whether you listen to and contemplate Pete Seeger, whether you don't like either of them, or whether you like both of them, or whether you don't even know who either of them are, we all need to obey this public health order. The rule of law is the foundation of our society. This order is now the law. Temporarily and under extreme circumstances, and without any pleasure on my behalf for enacting it, it's the step that we need to take because it is the season for staying at home to save lives. Coloradans, of course, can leave their homes for activities that you need to live by. That means obtaining food, household necessities, going to and from work if you're an essential employee, seeking medical care, caring for dependents, family members, pets, caring for a vulnerable person in another location. And again, I encourage you to contact vulnerable people you know, because we are also, as we did several days ago and last week, requesting that all Coloradans who are vulnerable, Coloradans in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, those who have respiratory issues, please stay at home at all times unless you are seeking medical care. And again, that means that if you know people in your community that meet that criteria, please offer to shop for them, leave the groceries at the doorstep, and do what they need so that they can remain isolated. They are at higher risk, but to be clear, we are all at risk from this virus. Over 7,000 Italians of all stripes of society, from famous, wealthy Italians to day laborers to the very young to the very old, have all fallen victim to this virus, and we can't allow thousands of Coloradans to meet the same fate. Generations ago, our forefathers made great sacrifices, the greatest generation on the beaches of Normandy, Iwo Jima, foremothers who sacrificed for country by turning in their pots and pans, children turning in their toys, farmers turning in their farm equipment to be melted down for the war effort. Now, our generation is being called upon to sacrifice to save the lives of our fellow Coloradans and our fellow Americans. And that sacrifice is staying at home. And that is a sacrifice for those who live paycheck to paycheck. And we can take this action today knowing that the federal government has taken action or will take action shortly. They've reached an agreement to ease that burden. I'm proud to say that they've taken action that will every family earning up to $75,000 a year, $150,000 for a couple, will receive an immediate cash payment. In addition, we will make sure that there's unemployment that was added by $600. So they have stepped up. The federal government has stepped up to say, look, if you can't go to work because of this, we know that that's what we need to do for a few weeks, and you will be compensated for that sacrifice. But you need to stay home and do your part. I need to stay home and do my part. We all need to stay home and do our part wherever possible, and only leave under the circumstances that we need to for the essentials that we need to get by. The personal responsibility piece is critical. We have a responsibility to ourselves, our fellow Coloradans, and our fellow Americans to reduce the spread of the virus and to save lives. And I'm proud of everybody who's taking this seriously. The patriotism of those who are taking this seriously will save the lives of countless Coloradans. Coloradans you may never see or know, and your friends, your relatives, your neighbors, and perhaps yourself. And when you must go out, we want you to be safe when you're doing it. At the state level, we'll focus on keeping all Coloradans safe. Yesterday, I sent a letter to grocery executives. Today, I had conversations with the top executives at Safeway and King Soopers about the specific steps that they're taking to prioritize the health and safety of customers and workers and do their part to reduce the spread of the virus. That means providing the appropriate personal separation devices, screens, masks, and gloves to workers at grocery stores as soon as they're available. It means expanding grocery delivery services and drive-by and pickup services. It means the daily designated time periods where if the most vulnerable have to go out, they can go out in a less crowded environment. It means establishing the controls around the crowds and distancing to make sure people standing in line are at least 6 feet apart at all times. It means prioritizing that our state law enforcement resources will be available to help keep those grocery stores safe and support the presence of local law enforcement officials at those locations. It also means our grocers are acting to make sure that their own employees that might be more vulnerable, their older employees and those with pre-existing conditions, can be in positions in the back room and stocking and not as exposed as others. I'm also calling upon municipalities in our state to temporarily suspend plastic bag fee ordinances for 30 days because we want to encourage the use of plastic bags as opposed to reusable bags to help further reduce the spread of COVID-19. As this pandemic continues, we look forward to the federal government completing their work on the bipartisan package that includes $600 additional per week unemployment benefits, as well as extending the time that individuals can collect unemployment benefits to 39 weeks. There's also $300 billion in loans and grants to small businesses across the country, including those whose temporary closure is necessitated under this order. Individual Americans also receive $1,200 in direct payments, up to $150,000 in income for a couple, with an additional $500 per child. There's a sliding scale. It actually goes up to $200,000 of household income with some direct payments. So again, stay home. You will get that check from the federal government. They've reached a bipartisan deal. It's a formality. It will pass. It might have even passed the Senate, or it will soon. It'll pass the House. When Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump agree, you know that it's important. And that's what I'm also saying with this stay-at-home order. It doesn't matter what your political persuasion is, what your geography is. The virus doesn't care. But we all care about the lives of our loved ones, and we need to do everything that we can to reduce its spread in Colorado. In addition to the disaster, I've also called on the President to grant Colorado dual status commander authority, which we hope to receive soon. This designation will ensure unity of command, allowing regular federal military units to be under the control of a single commander and help eliminate confusion and conflict to better deploy the people who are already on the ground. And I also want to thank the Army Corps of Engineers. I just talked to their commanding general hours ago. They're on the ground in Colorado, helping to build and expand hospital capacity. The steps that we are taking to delay the spread will give us that time and buy us that time that we need to increase the supply of medical services to the 10% or so of those who contract the coronavirus, who require medical intervention to save their lives. At the peak of the crisis, we expect to need thousands more hospital beds. And we hope that by reducing the spread of the virus and by you staying at home, we're having the time that allows us to do that. The Army Corps of Engineers is also helping with planning and integration of Department of Defense medical assets that are becoming available, and we're very grateful for that help. As many of you know, we are also working hard on acquisition and distribution of personal protection equipment, and I'm proud to say that Coloradans are rising to that challenge. Over the weekend, Coloradans donated 30 pallets, 4 truckloads of personal protective equipment. Thank you to Colorado House Majority Leader Alec Garnett, House Minority Leader Patrick Neville, the Denver Broncos, Project Cure, and Colorado Concern for helping to generate those donations. Over 7,000 volunteers have signed up at helpcoloradonow.org, and I encourage you to go to helpcoloradonow.org. If you can sign up to help with your time, you list your specialty or expertise, not just those in the medical professions. Of course, if you're in the medical professions and retired or in a different field, please sign up, but we need people across a variety of sectors. But also, if you have a company that can help, if you'd like to make an individual contribution, or to expand resources. The COVID-19 Relief Fund is already over $6 million, and you can donate at helpcoloradonow.org. Top priority, providing child care to those who are in the essential workforce to make sure that first responders and medical personnel are able to go to work with the schools out, because we need them to save lives. I'm proud to announce that the state lab in Colorado has eliminated its testing backlog. We've tripled our testing capacity. I want to thank Dr. Chavanti, Dr. Totem, Shannon Mansinger, and Dr. Eric France and everyone at the lab for their hard work. But we know that no one lab is enough. We've conducted 7 mobile testing sites to date. There's new labs coming online rapidly. CU, CSU, University Hospital, Children's. We're in the process of distributing 4,500 test kits to local public health agencies, and we're doing additional community-based testing sites and supporting them in Fort Collins and Grand Junction and Colorado Springs. And we are in talks in real time every moment about scaling up testing in Colorado, which is why this last Sunday we stood up the Innovation Response Team Task Force to develop a statewide system for mass testing and rapid results. to develop mobile and other technologies to track the spread of the virus and support infected citizens and citizens under quarantine for exposure, to create a suite of services for citizens under isolation and quarantine, to develop locally sourced, manufactured alternatives and to secure critical medical supplies in the global supply chain. These are private sector folks that we brought in at the highest level that are doing an amazing work for our state, and I want to thank them. On Sunday, we announced that Aura Labs, a personal care products company in Parker, has retooled their business to make hand sanitizer. And yesterday, they already made a delivery to Children's Hospital, and they're making 20,000 one-ounce units of sanitizer a day. I also showed an example of the face shields being manufactured by Genesis Plastics in Greeley, and the 3D printed headbands that can be made with 3D printers across our state. I want to give a special shout out to CSU and CU Boulder, who've committed to organize testing of personal protection equipment for our frontline health care workers and other vulnerable populations. As we push through those global supply chains and as we seek to manufacture here at home, thank you to CU and CSU for stepping up to test all of those masks, all of those gloves, all of those gowns, so we can make sure that they meet the requirements that are needed without having to go through a federal bureaucracy to be able to be deployed immediately in the field. CSU and a network of academic labs will be testing newly made personal protection equipment. And right now, the turnaround time at FDA for testing is months, so that's not a viable option. We need it now. Our Colorado labs can test equipment within hours, eliminate federal red tape, and make sure that we can get this material into the hands of medical professionals. And after that need is met, the broader population, including at grocery stores and others, as soon as possible. Speed is of the essence as the number of cases continue to grow. We surpassed 1,000 cases today, diagnosed, many thousands undiagnosed in our state. Staying at home will reduce the spread of the virus and save lives. I'm proud of the work that's already being done, and I'm proud that we've brought in additional expertise. In addition to Brad Feld, who's coordinating private sector activities, Noel Ginsberg, who's focused on manufacturing, I want to introduce two new members of the team. Lucy Sanders, CEO and co-founder of the National Center for Women in Information Technology. Lucy, who I've known for many years, is going to head up isolation services to provide people who are in self-isolation or home quarantine both the critical supplies, that might mean food, it might mean their prescription drugs, it might mean access, and also ancillary services to make their at-home experience as comfortable as possible to increase compliance. Also want to say that we're proud to have the efforts of Tim Miller, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Rally Software, who's setting our software development team on an emergency basis. The objective is to build applications and websites for both government and citizens to manage all aspects of the crisis and provide the key data we need to track and adjust our response as needed. In fact, part of the very decision-making process around the stay-at-home order is from the mobility data that Tim has been able to put together a working model in very short time to see the steps that we are taking, how much they are increasing social distancing in a real-time basis, what closing down the bars and restaurants accomplished, what Denver's emergency order accomplished, what the additional steps of closing down salons, tattoo parlors, massage parlors has accomplished, and what these steps will accomplish. It's just important from a backward-looking perspective, as a forward-looking perspective, as we all look forward to easing these restrictions and ending these restrictions as soon as possible. One area that continues to be on my mind as a challenge is acquiring enough ventilators. Right now, we're several thousand short of what we need for the peak that we are seeking to delay by engaging in these emergency actions, but the peak that will nevertheless be upon us. Unfortunately, our latest delivery from the national stockpile had 0 ventilators. My innovation response team is working as hard as they can to identify manufacturers and supply chains. But consider this a call to arms for the private sector. We need your creativity. We need your help to be able to beat these goals. We need manufacturers in our state to join this cause and help us produce ventilators and acquire ventilators through the supply chain that can save the lives of our neighbors, our friends, our parents, our grandparents, and maybe even yourself. Look, Americans have been called on to serve our country time and time again. You have the chance to be a hero and save thousands of lives by staying at home. The lives of many Coloradans, the lives of your neighbors, your friends, your family, and perhaps your own, hinges on your ability to be able to stay at home for the next couple weeks to the most of your ability. That's what we are asking, and we want to occur across the state of Colorado. That goes for everyone. We're all in this together. We'll continue to look for both public and private sector solutions that allow us to address the public health crisis and minimize the disruption to our economy by easing these restrictions and returning to a normal market economy as quickly as we possibly can. The most important and responsible thing for you to do, for your state, for your country, for the lives of those around you, and because it is now the law of Colorado, is to stay at home unless it's absolutely necessary through April 11th. To everything there's a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die. And I want to share with my fellow Coloradans that now is not the time to die, and we will not let it happen on our watch.